On August 24, 2010, Depuy Orthopedics, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, announced a global recall of the ASR XL acetabular system. This total hip replacement had been sold in the U.S. for over 10 years. Also recalled the Depuy ASR hip resurfacing system, a partial replacement, only approved for use outside the United States. This action was taken by Depuy in the U.S. months after having done so abroad, exposing hip implant recipients in the United States during that time to unnecessary risk, where a defective and dangerous implant would be used because the worldwide recall, including the U.S., had been delayed. The recall was initiated following a study which showed that the Depuy implants were failing within just a few years of being implanted, although they were supposed to last 15 years or longer. And recipients of the Depuy Pinnacle acetabular cup system have been complaining of symptoms related to hip implant failure. Many of the patients receiving Depuy hip implants suffered from severe pain in the hip implant area, stiffness and swelling there, followed by popping and grinding sensations in the implant, which interfered with their ability to walk, stand, or sit for long periods of time.
Take your time. Keep it straight. Keep it straight.
These symptoms often worsened over time, resulting in severe disability, requiring revision surgery, an additional hip replacement procedure, and other hip implant manufacturers are involved. Also recalled the right hip implant device. If you have one of these hip implants, you may already have been contacted by your doctor asking for a blood test, or from the manufacturer itself, like Depuy, or by Broadspire, Depuy's agency that is adjusting claims. Be forewarned that they are interested in settling with you as inexpensively as possible. They will offer you a hip revision surgery for free, but often that's all. You sign a release, and they walk away.
Hello, I'm Howard Nations. My law firm, the Law Offices of Howard L. Nations, is a national pharmaceutical litigation firm with clients in all 50 states. And for the last decade, we've specialized in pharmaceutical litigation, suing manufacturers of devices and manufacturers of bad drugs. We are currently accepting cases involving defectively designed hip implants.
As this animation, prepared by the nation's law firm, illustrates, the human hip has a femoral head and acetabulum. During replacement surgery, these natural hip components are removed and replaced with a hip implant, in this case with Depuy implants. A metal-on-metal design was employed, with disastrous consequences. In its design, Depuy used a smaller cup, one where the surface articulation stops before the rim. This causes edge load, or stress points at the edge of the cup, which produces friction and shaving of the metal, producing what is known as metallic debris. These tiny particles of chromium and cobalt lead to friction in the hip implant joint, damaging the metal components even further. Additionally, this debris causes an interruption in the flow of fluids into the joint, known as fluid starvation. What results is increased dysfunction of the hip implant and premature failure. As a Depuy hip implant fails, the metal components are damaged and break down. That releases chromium and cobalt ions into the tissue, causing pseudotumors, and into the bloodstream, carried throughout the body. Studies into this health risk are underway. In the future, we will know more about potential future health complications from this toxic exposure.
Feel all right?
Yeah.
When the Depuy ASR hip implant was recalled, 13% of hip replacement patients had undergone revision surgery within 5 years when their implant failed. As more fail, numbers will rise.
Take your time.
However, with this defective Depuy implant, when it is removed, often the tissue and bone surrounding the implant has been damaged. When the metal components of the implant break down, the chromium and cobalt particles can leach out and penetrate bone and tissue and destroy it, necessitating its removal. This makes hip reimplantation either impossible or the installation more difficult and the replacement implant's longevity reduced. With hip implants, patients are promised a lifespan of 15 years and the possibility of a second or third replacement if necessary, giving someone potentially 45 years of better mobility and reduced pain. If the Depuy implants are failing after just a few years and the life of a reimplantation is diminished due to damage caused by the defective device, then that person looks forward to potentially less than 10 years of better mobility and reduced pain. In order to pursue a claim against the manufacturer of this dangerous medical device, which is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, it's critical that you be represented by an attorney who specializes in this type of litigation, a medical device litigation specialist, well known to defendants, the manufacturers, and their lawyers. Consider carefully who prepares your case and is advocating on your behalf.
If you go to your local attorney and they filed your case locally, you will not stay in your local court. Because when you have thousands of people, or tens of thousands of people, suing the same defendant, the same one pharmaceutical company, the federal rules provide that all those cases, regardless of where they're filed, will be moved to one federal judge. And it's very important for you to understand that you have to hire a pharmaceutical specialist in order to prosecute your case.
Howard Nations is a renowned trial lawyer, a member of plaintiff steering committees in pharmaceutical litigation, recognized as a super lawyer who has been elected president of national and state trial lawyer associations and lectured to trial lawyers in all 50 states and 12 foreign countries. Mr. Nations has received numerous awards over the decades, the Warhorse Award, the Melvin Belli, and Clarence Darrow Awards. Mr. Nations and his staff of attorneys, paralegals, legal assistants, administrators, and trial support work applying experience, expertise, and financial resources to successfully resolve your case. If you have one of these hip implants, you will fall into one of 4 categories. Presently, you are having no symptoms, or you are having symptoms, but so far have not undergone revision surgery. Or you had or have symptoms and did undergo a revision procedure. And finally, you have symptoms but are not a candidate for revision surgery. At the Nations Law Firm, we prepare hip implant failure cases client by client, meaning each client is represented as an individual. As your lawyer, we develop your claim, having evaluated the facts of your particular case. In this type of litigation, known as mass tort litigation, it is not a class action suit, where a group of claimants, sometimes in the thousands or tens of thousands, divide a sum of money. This litigation is what is known as an MDL, multi-district litigation, where all of the cases nationally are consolidated in one federal court located somewhere in the country. The litigation for the plaintiffs is guided by a plaintiff's steering committee. In a lawsuit, the plaintiff first proves liability. Who is responsible? In a court of law, that is a costly undertaking, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. In an MDL, those expenses are shared among all of the plaintiffs, resulting in a low cost to each plaintiff, making a claim even possible. After liability is established, then each case, each individual is considered in terms of damages and the amount to be paid.
We look at your case individually, we pull together your proof individually, we present it individually, we argue it at mediation individually, and we settle your case individually.